Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the very first ever Pentawards Festival. Wow. Thank you. Everyone is quite excited here, and I hope you are too. My name is Adam Ryan. I am head of Pentawards, and I am your host for today's proceedings. Over the next 3 days, the Pentawards Festival is open to everyone from the global creative, design, and packaging community. We have world-class presentations, tough debates, inspiring ideas. We will be revealing who are this year's Pentawards winners, and as always, there's going to be a few surprises. Everything is free to access from across the world, so please tell your colleagues and everyone you would like to join the conversation. So, why have we done this? We have made the decision when the global pandemic hit, after many deep conversations with our global community, not to hold our physical event. However, the community wanted that creative boost and to stay connected. The Digital Pentawards Festival was born, so regardless of the location, we are together. Thanks to our sponsors, UPM Rattle, Shenzhen Beijing Long, Tappy, Golden Arrow, ADF, PCD and PLD by Easy Fares, Reflex, and a super special thanks to Severe & Co. Our first speaker today is Dave Roberts, creative partner at Superunion. Dave has worked with some of the world's most iconic brands, such as Samsung, M&S, Molton Brown, and HSBC. He is a current Pentawards jury member and an all-round super nice guy. Following Dave's presentation, we'll be asking your questions. To ensure you type them in the Q&A box below, leave a comment in the chat room, just to let us know you're here. Hi, everyone. Post on social media using @Pentawards or the hashtag Pentawards Festival. So, without further ado, to kick off our first ever festival, please give a warm welcome to John Humphrey, Dave Roberts. Yay.
Hi there. Right, let me see if I can just share my deck. There we go. Is that all good?
Perfect.
Great. Thank you very much for that. That's great. Well, hello everybody. My name's Dave Roberts, and I'm, as it says there, creative partner at Superunion. And I've got a little talk I'm going to share with you today. I think you probably saw the title, which is essentially going to stop designing and start writing, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm based in the London studio, just to tell you a little bit about what I do. I'm a creative partner heading up projects here. Obviously, we've got a kind of global network of studios as well. There's a few of us in today. We'll see what happens over the next few days. So the talk I'm going to go through really is, as I said before, I'm going to stop designing and start writing more. And I guess the first question we kind of ask is why? And what it really boils down to is to concentrate more on the creative idea and what that creative idea is. I think we're in a world at the moment where a world of Pinterest and visuals and everything else, where it's all too easy to kind of maybe look at the execution a little bit too quickly. And I think what we're starting to do now is just draw it back to what's that core idea, what's at the heart. Now, the look and feel of things are really, really important. But what I want to talk today about is just getting back to the core of the idea. We know that briefs are important. We know that brand models are important, and they all form part of what we do every day, whether it be kind of for branding or for packaging. But sometimes for a creative community and a kind of design job, there's that little bit in between the strategy and the creative, where we just need that lifting off point. We just need that push to define a direction. And sometimes it just gets a little bit too complicated, and there's a little bit too much in there. And what I love doing, and what we are doing more and more, is just refining what that thought is. And obviously that is simplicity. Now, in itself, simplicity is not an original idea. There's many people have talked about simplicity and shown simplicity, but it is important, so it should be talked about. And that's why I'm talking about it today, because I think it really, really, really is important, and it's becoming more and more important, so that we engage with what the real idea is. Funny enough, I came across this, and I'll be honest, I didn't know about Occam's razor before I kind of did a little bit more research about this talk. And interesting enough, obviously we're not the first people on the block. This chap here, William of Ockham, 14th century, kind of coined the idea of kind of shaving off everything that's not needed until you end up with that kind of pinnacle truth in the middle, and that kind of getting rid of the kind of unnecessary assumptions, and kind of the law of briefness, which is actually really, really interesting. But what I tend to call the idea is kind of a creative bridge. As I said, that bit between the strategy and where we lift off from a creative point of view, just to make sure that we always have the idea at the heart. And the kind of the way I describe it is it takes your mind somewhere and it doesn't leave you stranded. I think there's a lot of times when people think they have the idea, or they think they have the kind of core strategic thought, and actually you are left a little bit stranded and you don't see where it can take you, or kind of a visual metaphor. I thought it'd be interesting as well to look at other areas. So the idea of just boiling an idea down or a thought down into its simplest form to take you somewhere, obviously it's not just in a kind of packaging or design and branding world. This phrase here, as snug as a baseball in a warm leather mitt, is a lovely phrase, but that was used for Eames before they started to look at using the chaise lounge and how that might feel. And you can feel the different, you can feel what effect they were trying to get from the design, which is really interesting. I pulled this quote out, which I thought was lovely, but sometimes the smallest things take up the most room in your heart. And that kind of gets you in the heart. It's evocative. And that's from a book. And I guess from no surprises, really, it's A.A. Milne, and it's the story of Winnie the Pooh, which kind of the idea that sat at the heart of the book. I also looked into sport as well. And I thought this phrase, total football, summed up really well. The fact that the word total describes what each player has to do on that pitch at any one time is really fascinating. So the ability for teams to have all players be fluid in their role, and the fact that you can kind of boil that down into two worlds. So just the thought that the idea is just not limited to a creative world. And then you can look into art. I think obviously there's lots of different deviations of arts and types and styles, but nothing is art if it does not come from nature. It was kind of at the heart of what Gaudi believed in. So everything he did kind of came from nature, kind of evolved from nature, and looked like it came from nature as well. So it's just reiterating the idea, if you have a very pure, simple, refined and thought, where all the other bits are shaved off, you can sometimes, or more often than not, a lot more powerful. So what I also want to do is share some of our work that we've been doing with in the studio around the world, where we believe and we've celebrated the kind of a core idea that really does kind of define what the work, or how the work should come to life. So the first one I want to show is Figlia. This is a joint project between Hong Kong and Italy, and essentially it's for an olive oil farm. The CEO is a woman, and very, very directive in the fact that actually the idea behind the whole brand identity and the packaging specifically was the idea of being feminine by nature. And everything about it had to employ that kind of idea. And the team came with a really, really beautiful idea of actually, these are limited edition bottles, but there's a sensitivity and a quality to the way they've been designed that is kind of rooted in the core idea of feminine by nature. And that follows through everything that they've done. And it's just a very simple execution of a very, very simple thought. The next one, very different, was for Argos. This is a project which came out the London studio. The idea at the heart of this one was really let the products speak for themselves. And at the time, this was for the lowest tier of packaging that was within the Argos portfolio. So there wasn't a lot of money for printing, very simple inks and everything else. So the idea was that what could we do to the packaging to kind of let them speak for themselves. And we took that idea and we kind of rolled it out into the packaging. And I'll just show you that obviously that's the packaging. I'll just show you a little video that kind of brought it to life. Oops, no, forgot how long that video was. So yeah, so it was all about the copy. It was just a very, very simple idea just to release within the copy. Another piece of work at the London studio had to buy Stuart the ECD here with the LSO. It's a really lovely piece of work, and I think again the single-minded thought or the kind of pure essence of the creative bridge was lovely, which is designed by Sir Simon Rattle. So Sir Simon Rattle, quite a famous conductor. He was at the heart, obviously, of the orchestra, and Stuart and the team decided that actually he needed to be at the heart of the identity. So again, really, really simple, pure idea, and then they brought that to life by essentially dressing Sir Simon Rattle up in the kind of movement costume, and that enabled them to record his movements, and then from that, the pieces of art and pieces of animation which were depicted of the specific pieces of music were brought to life. There's a longer, kind of more in-depth kind of case study on this, but I thought it's a lovely articulation of a very simple idea brought to life very clearly. And then what Stuart and team did was kind of evolve that over different moods. So obviously within the music, but different moods coming through. And then they rolled that out into the identity, and it's still at the very, very heart. It's all about the movement of Sir Simon Rattle, and then they even kind of brought it into the typography as well. So the kind of conductor strokes I kind of brought into typography. So every single last bit, even down to the original logo of the LSO, which we didn't modify, just a little tweak, still had the conductor idea in it. So it kind of followed through really, really beautifully. As you can see there again. So one simple thought, just follow through all the applications and everything. The next example I want to share was Elliptic, very different. So Elliptic are a data technology company that work with law enforcement on the kind of dark web, and they kind of essentially protect and unearth things that are unsavory things which are going on in the web. So at the heart of what they did was this idea, and the team here, Mark and Jay from London studio worked on it, was the idea of finding the truth, which you can imagine links very nicely with the job they have to do with law enforcement, but then also visually, the guys brought it to life in a way which was really interesting because it made the viewer kind of lean in. It made the viewer kind of want to know a little bit more about what was going on. So I'm just going to share a little animation here. And again, there's no surprises that the look and feel has got that data kind of feeling within it as well. But the idea is about finding the truth within that data. And the whole visual identity was very typographic. And I think you can just probably see at the bottom there, you've got the word truth going along. And then with all the applications, as I said, is about revealing the copy and revealing the truth and revealing what we wanted to say within the visual identity. So again, very simple idea, just delivered very precisely in the applications. And then ILA, a more recent one. This is actually, we worked on this with the Dubai office and the London studio as well. And it's a mobile banking app. It was available in Arabic and also in English, which is kind of one of the first times it's done to this extent. At the heart of the idea, we came up with this phrase, banking that reflects you, because it was going to be in Arabic and going to be in English. We had a bit of a gift, I'll be honest, in the fact that the word was really, really short, illa, which means to kind of move or to go. But at the very start, we wanted to kind of embrace this idea of this mirroring or this reflection idea and not deviate from it. So on the left-hand side, you've got the Arabic, and obviously on the right-hand side, you've got the English. And we could see within there, we worked with the designer Farah Gamal, based in the Berlin studio now. She worked really, really hard on trying to find a way of actually making it actually be a reflection. So that's obviously in text. And then we found a way of evolving the logo. So you've got the right-hand side, which is in English, and obviously we've moved the dot to the bottom. And then on the left-hand side, you've got the Arabic. But again, it was just a very simple idea, and we were lucky enough to kind of execute it within the identity. And you see that the world of Villa essentially is this two-sided reflective idea that reflects the core idea of banking that reflects you. Okay, and then I'll just leave you on one simple thought really at the end. Really, this is not my quote. This is an Einstein quote, which is really the thing that kind of runs through all of this from a lot of people who work within Superunion and myself, is really, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough, really. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make here, is actually I think we need to question ourselves more and more and more, that do we really understand what's at the heart of the idea we're trying to get across before we start the creative process? You know, if we don't, then we probably shouldn't move forward into the into the kind of visual part of the creative process. You know, I worry less, to be honest, about the look and feel and how things look and how beautiful things look, because I'm surrounded by a bunch of very, very talented people, designers that can actually make things look amazing. But the most important thing is that we refine and find the simplest and purest articulation of what that idea is before we move off into kind of execution. Thank you.
Wow, that was absolutely incredible. Thank you, Dave. We've got some questions coming in from everybody watching at home. The first one is, hi Dave, how do you work with a paid creative to get the best out of them with their brief? So I guess you've worked with some really creative brands, but say there's a brand that by nature isn't the most creative. How do you approach getting their brief and you being able to get the best out of them for that?
I think the simplest, you knew I'd say that, answer to that really is working closely. We have a very collaborative process at Superunion, and I think you've got to bring people close to what you're doing. And I think also, I think you'll be surprised. I think most organisations are actually quite creative and they want to have fun, and they want to get involved, to be honest. So I think the closer you can get into having fun with you, because it is a fun process, and appreciating what you do, the better.
Great. We've got another question that's coming in. Obviously, this was the first year you was part of the Pentawards jury, and someone's asking, what advice would you give to somebody entering the Pentawards competition? Obviously, people have to submit images and a brief description. What advice would you give somebody?
I end up repeating myself, aren't I? No, I think obviously when you do an awards entry, you do boards and you do slides and you hand them in. I think it's really important to make sure you know what the stories you're trying to tell. What are you trying to get that jury member to remember? What's that one thing, and making sure that comes to life. So again, it's the simpler the better. But what's that kind of core idea that's at the heart of it? I think there's a lot of competition out there. With a lot of kind of videos and things and, wacky, people have been doing, but, at the end of the day, it's down to that idea. I think everybody remembers an idea that's kind of planted in the middle of their brain.
Great. We've got lots of people following today who are packaging designers and lovers. Graham Strutt has asked, what is your favorite piece of packaging design?
Probably a baked bean tin, if I'm honest. I just think that the iconicity of that piece of work is kind of stands out for me, and it's a test of time. Thanks, Graham.
Great. And we've got one more question. What do you think about different cultures influencing on design? And off air previously, we spoke about that lovely piece of work that you did, and you worked with different people from different offices, the lady that spoke Arabic. How do you approach that, and what do you think the influence on design is?
But it's a joy. I mean, we're just really, really lucky, aren't we? I mean, as a profession, the fact that we can work with lots of different people around the world and, you know, do what we love. And I think over the last few years, we've been able to do it more and more and more. So, I mean, you know, bring it on. I think the more we can do it, the more we're going to learn, the more we can share ideas, and the work will get better.
Great. Dave, you've been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for opening the first ever session at our Pentawards Festival. Up next, we've got our keynote speaker, Stefan Sagmeister. Trust me, you do not want to miss it. We'll be back at 1:30 BST, so we'll see you soon. Thanks, Dave, and take care.
Cheers. Bye.